and welcome to the Be Your Own podcast. I'm your host, Samana Duran, and founder of Be Your Own, the global media hub of all things entrepreneurship and career navigation. As you know, this podcast is all about highlighting incredible women out there doing awesome things. But this is the part where I ask for your help. And by help, I mean I need you to go onto iTunes and give me a 5-star rating. Okay, it doesn't really have to be 5 stars. Any rating will do. But it will help me to understand your thoughts and feedback. But now, on to the show. So today we chat to Liz Taylor, an entrepreneur, a mother, and a fabulous grandmother who developed a business over 30 years ago and now plans huge events for clients who we'll chat about in the show. Of course. For this, I'm a huge Coronation Street fan as Liz explores how she overcame many life challenges and created a £1 million enterprise, all from her cupboard on pretty much £200. Liz, thank you so much for joining us today on the Be Your Own podcast. How are you? How's it going? Talk to me.
First of all, I'm delighted to join you this morning. Thank you very much for having me on Be Your Own podcast.
Thank you.
All is good. We are obviously in very challenging times. I mean, my industry, which is basically, so I have a number of different companies, but the main company, which we're going to chat about today, is the event company, the Taylor Lynn Corporation. And as you can imagine, that is just totally, gone. It's disastrous. But, and this is a huge but, I've started in 1986. I started as a single mum with 2 children and not a bean. And I survived 2 recessions. I built my business on the back, really, of the IRA bomb. So I have decided that I am not letting a little rat or bat from China destroy my business.
Absolutely.
And I've really used the time over the past 8 weeks very, very productively, which hopefully we'll discuss as we chat today. But it's been a good time for me. It's been time to reflect, engage the staff in stuff that we would never have engaged in. I mean, even like, what makeup do you wear? Because when you go into the office in the morning and it's like full on and the phones ring from 8:30, we don't even stop for lunch. Every Friday we do a group lunch and we all either have a Wagamama or a Dishoom or something, but we don't stop. So it has put the brakes on. And if I'm honest, I've enjoyed the reflective time that I've had. When I left school, I joined Marks and Spencer's as a management trainee. I had quite a privileged upbringing, but I had a really very, very, very difficult, bullyish father. That was probably the ground. They were the foundations of who I became. And I went to Manchester High School, hated it, every minute of it. And I did my A-levels, but failed miserably and didn't know really what I wanted to do. I'd had a Saturday job from the age of 14 in a dress shop. And I realised from an early age that communication was probably my strongest skill. So I joined Marks and Spencer's, I got in, and then it was a real big deal to get on the management training scheme. And for 12 years I was in fashion retail. What Marks and Spencer's gave me was the grounding, the infrastructure, the logistics, the administrative skills that I've taken with me along the journey. I mean, I sound like I'm 1 foot in the grave, but believe me, I've got loads more coming, loads more to do. So I moved on, and when I married, I got married at 27, and when I was pregnant with my eldest child, who's now 35, I gave up work. I couldn't work on Saturdays because I'm Jewish and my husband was quite religious, and so I gave up work. And I was fiddling about with some PR, clothing. I had a friend who had a clothing shop, and the Midland Hotel had just been bought by the Holiday Inn. And I went in with this scheme that if you came in for a conference and you didn't have anything to wear, you dial an 0800 number. My friend would fill a car with clothes and off we'd toddle and we'd hire them or rent them. This was my sort of harebrained idea. So fairly creative, I think. And in chatting to the sales director at the hotel, we were having a coffee and she said, I really want to launch the hotel to PAs in the city. They're the ones with the purse strings. They're the ones that are going to book the events. I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, well, I might do a Hollywood night. We've got a pool downstairs. And this was literally how it started. And I said, well, not really working. I'll do it for you. I'm quite resourceful. And she said, oh, are you sure? So I said, yes. And I didn't even think about getting paid. I mean, I didn't even commissions and trade discounts. They sort of didn't come into it. It was just I fancied doing it. It was a massive success because I used to hang out in a place called Bavardage, which was a club in town. And your listeners may not know of it, but their parents will. And Ainsley Harriot's dad was the pianist, and he was a real American. He was fabulous. And I said to him, Chester, I need you at the Holiday. I need you at the Midlands Hotel. I need you to do a few tunes. And he, sure, and he went. And after it, they gave me 2 more projects. One was a circus theme, and I can't remember. The third one might have been a Halloween. I can't remember. But I immediately saw an opportunity. And my daughters were 14 months apart. And after I had a second daughter in 1986, I knew then that the marriage was not going to last. It was a total disaster. And I had lived this sort of, sham of a life in a 4-bedroom detached home, and I left with nothing, just a deposit for a house. I wanted to stay in the area, and this idea that I could make a living out of organising events. And that's how it started. Wow. And so I did, and my office in my new little 3-bedroom semi was the downstairs toilet eventually. So that's how big it was.
Wow.
And that was how the journey began.
Literally running shit. Okay, so you built a £1 million enterprise on, was it like £200? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, probably a multi-million-pound enterprise. And I say that with confidence. I put £200 in the bank, and off I went. And everything fell into place. So I met the 2 guys who were local, who were designing Granada Studios tour. And they introduced me to the guy that was building the sets for them. His name was Len Hannibal, and he's probably not even alive now, but he was, if you wanted an Eiffel Tower, he built an Eiffel Tower. And Len built me all sorts of crazy, crazy stuff over the years. But what it also did was give me an introduction into the venue. So that ultimately, if you went to Granada Studio Tours to have a conference on Baker Street, or the Royal Bank of Scotland would hire out the Starlight Theatre for dinner, you were recommended to me immediately for lighting, special effects, entertainment, and that's how it works. And I realised then, and I stand by this now, that contacts, communication and contacts are the most important thing in any business. You need to be able to pick up the phone and say, actually, I know a guy that can. Yeah. And that guy answers your call because he knows that you're a person that can. The contacts in the hotels have been my source of income. So if anybody, and I'll tell you the Gary Barlow story, which is a brilliant story and will inspire anybody, but it demonstrates what I'm just saying, is that I got a phone call in 2011, and for some reason, I've always had a small team. I've always had 3 or 4 people. I've only been interested in employing skilled people that can do the job, and that we can all do the same job. There's no point. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's just only one person can do one event. And she came in and she said, there's somebody on the phone having a charity event. You might want to talk to her. I said, did you get a name? She said, no. And, of course, I'm effing and jeffing there because she should have asked the name. And I pick up the phone and I said, hi, it's Liz speaking. How can I help you? And she said, I've been given your name, I've been recommended to you, coming to Manchester in a couple of days. And I'm looking at 3 venues. We're having a charity event there later in the year. And I said, well, can we meet? Because I've got lovely offices. And, she said, no, I don't want to meet you. I've been given 3 companies to contact. So I said, where are you looking? And she said, I'm looking at the Hilton, and I'm looking at the Town Hall, and I'm looking at the Midlands. She said, I've got walking up to the Hilton at 10 o'clock. So I said, well, if you're walking up to the Hilton at 10 o'clock, you must be staying at Great John Street. She said, well, how do you know that? So I said, because you don't actually sound like a Premier Inn type of girl. She said, well, I can't get in. She said, it's full. I said, okay. And I still haven't asked the name. I said, okay, I'll tell you, this is the deal. I will get you the room at Great John Street if you let me meet you at the Hilton at 10 o'clock. Give me your number. She gives me a number, and this is where contacts are just invaluable. I phone up Great John Street. I get straight through to the owners and the directors. I said, look, don't ask me what this is about. It's a hunch. I need a complimentary room tomorrow night. I said, I've got somebody coming up. It could be a big gig. No problem, they said. And this is the hotel that had told this girl that they were full. But I know that they keep a couple of rooms back just in case. I phoned the girl back and I said, right, deal, I've got you the room. We're meeting at the Hilton at 10 o'clock. Can I ask you, what's your name? What's it about? She gave me a name. She said, I'm Gary Barlow's PA and it's for BBC Children in Need. And that to me was, I tingle as I tell you the story because it was not like a fairy tale, but it was a business, it was an opening for me, it was an opportunity that had I not taken that call and had I not reacted as I did, it would never have happened. And that opened doors. I ended up working for the Duke of Cambridge, Robbie Williams, Peter Kay. That whole sort of avenue was phenomenal. But the core of what I'm saying here, as I'm waffling on to is that it's people. It is people and connections, communication, integrity, respect and loyalty that make you successful.
You've mentioned briefly that your father wasn't that, kind to you.
Married at 21 to a friend who I should never have married, and divorced at 23, and then I remarried at 27, divorced at 36, and then I remarried, and I was married for over 20 years to somebody that I thought was my soulmate, and I was, bitterly, dreadfully deceived in the worst way. So, and my father was a very, very difficult, he was a judge. He was his expectations were ridiculous. Nothing was ever good enough. So I've surrounded myself with, don't ever ask me to go on a dating site because believe me, I'll only be able to pick the worst one out there. So the men have had a significant effect in my life. I'm a Pisces, I'm very emotional because it was sink or swim. And I suppose, we're all genetically made or whatever it is, but my instinct was to swim. And the more I swam, and I can't swim, by the way, which is quite an interesting thing, but the more I swam, the more I got the confidence in myself. Sam, I'm not complacent. There's still not a day when I wake up and think, actually, I've made it. Or, I've got £2 million worth of business over the next 3 months. Great. I'll sit back and have a vodka and tonic. I am only worried about what's ahead. I've just set up a consultancy business, which is something that I've wanted to do for a while. I realised how valuable my Black Book was. And the consultancy business, in the 6-7 weeks I've been at home, has got the most mega website. I've picked up 2 new clients. And it's going to go places. And the reason I mention it is because it's the challenge. I thrive on the challenge. And I think that I thrived on the challenge from early years. I never needed anybody. My mantra's always been, and Pete, you should think this, what is the worst thing that can happen? What is the worst thing? The worst thing is that actually I've got no money in the bank and I've got no bread on the table. That is the worst thing, because as long as I've got my health and I'm resilient and I'm loved by the people that matter to me, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And so, just go for it. Just go for it and believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, how can you expect anybody else to? The therapy session this week.
No, do you know what?
For all your listeners, if you want an hour's therapy, I'm going to add that to my CV.
So then let's talk about being the official organiser of Coronation Street's 50th anniversary. That is just incredible. Like, how does it even feel?
Are you a Corrie fan?
Do you know what the thing is? I'm not really a Corrie fan.
Could you be a Corrie fan just for this podcast, please? Let me tell you about Coronation Street. I actually did the 40th anniversary and the 50th anniversary. Wow. And I've watched Coronation Street, I think from the age of 4. I remember Ina Sharples and Minnie Caldwell in black and white with the cat on the roof. And this is how it evolved. Granada Studios tour was open. I was the recommended supplier. Jane McClure, who now works for the BBC, worked for Granada Studios tour as a PA. She was headhunted by the producer of Coronation Street to go and work for him. And she and I had worked together and become great friends at Granada Studios tour with all the stuff I'd done. So when they were planning their 40th, or if any of the cast were having a wedding or a birthday or whatever, who's the person she recommends? Me.
Of course.
And that was how I got in. And through that, So, and, it's all about, you've got to have balls, and I go back to say you've got to believe in yourself. I am very, very, this is a whole nother podcast, but I am very focused on, and I lecture at the MMU, Manchester Met, and we're doing Zoom lectures on body language. I can't bear people that don't look you in the eye or don't shake your hands or don't stand up. I always stand up if somebody comes in the room, because it's that body language that gives you the confidence in yourself and in that person. So when I had the opportunity of meeting Charles Allen, was the big chief of Granada, and David Lidderman and Jules Burns, these guys were managing directors, senior producers. I made sure that when they came to that Christmas party, they knew who I was when they left. I would go up, I'd say, "Hi, I'm Liz Taylor and it was Liz Taylor Associates then. The TLC was formed in 1995. I'm Liz Taylor. I've organised this party for you. I'm an independent, that I've been of service." And they knew who I was. So the next year, it would be Charles Allen would say to Jane, "Please call Liz Taylor up. I wanted to do the Christmas party. I wanted to do the 40th. And when Charles Allen hosted the private party for the Queen at the Commonwealth Games, who did he call? But he called us. And we did it. And that's how it works. So you deliver the product, you give them confidence, you deliver something totally out of the box, and you make sure that they know who you are before they go home. That was Coronation Street. And then, of course, for me, it was like a royal wedding. I've done Anthony Cotton. I did his 30th, and he introduced me to loads of people. We did it on a train. We did it on the East Lancs Railway, and we did a murder mystery or something. I can't remember. It was great. But Anthony Cotton, Jenny McAlpine, Simon Gregson, Alan Halsall, all of them, Kath Tilsley, Kim Marsh.
Wow.
And they're all mates. Sally Lindsay, Saran Jones, Kate Kelly. I've done the leaving parties, the welcome parties, the weddings. And I love them. They're like family. And they are very, very loyal to me. It's pyramid selling. They wouldn't let anybody else. That loyalty is just worth gold.
I know that you've actually worked with Michelle Keegan, right?
A very funny story with Michelle and Mark, because Michelle and Mark got engaged, and it was actually Mark's agent that recommended a wedding planner for them. Oh. They booked a place down in Bury St Edmunds called Hengrave Hall. And 3 months before the wedding, I got a call from Michelle. I think it was an email, and she just said, "Look, would you jump in and help? We're in a mess. It's going nowhere." They had numerous problems with the planner. So I said, "Yes, absolutely." She said, "It's at Hengrave Hall in Bury St Edmunds." It was like a 4 or 5 hour drive for me. And they were having it in the hall at the time, I think. So I arranged to drive down. Michelle couldn't meet me. I knew Michelle well from Coronation Street, and she is as lovely inside as she is outside. She's just she's a good girl. And Mark was going to an awards dinner the night before in London, but he said he would meet me there at 11:30 it was a Thursday. So I drove 4 hours, and I get there, and it must have been about 11:15, and I got a call from him. And he said, "Look," he said, "I've had a bit of a heavy night." He said, "I can't make it." He said, "Have a look round and tell me what you think." I said, "Mark, if you're not here by 11:30, I said, and I'll give you extra time till 12 o'clock. I said, you can F off, because I won't be doing your wedding." An hour later, he rocks up. And in his wedding speech, he said, when he made his groom speech, he said, "I'd like to introduce you to my wedding planner." He said, "Please don't mess with her." And that was the relationship. And we had the best time. And we built a marquee. We changed everything in 3 months. They had the most fabulous wedding breakfast, and then the wall dropped. And behind it, we created a club with star-cloth, a big central bar. They had a live band. They had, can't remember, it will come back to me because I love him, Rick Parfitt Jr., who we worked with an awful lot. He was the band. And they, as their opening dance, had choreographed the scene from Dirty Dancing with
Wow.
Babe and So that was the Mark and Michelle story. And again, we're in touch, and they've gone on to really, really great things. But I know them, and I think that that's the nicest thing. They are lovely people. On the Friday night, they were having a family barbecue. totally private, but they insisted that I went.
Wow.
And those are the things that actually mean a lot. You know, you sort of, they become friends, not with any agenda other than that it's lovely to go through life and meet up with people on a journey. And they are definitely on a journey.
Yeah.
I just wish to have a baby because I want to do a christening.
You've worked with Michelle Keegan, Mark Wright, Eamon Holmes and Ruth Langsford. So, like, what would your advice really be for someone who's starting a career or wanting to get their foot in the door? Because your portfolio is just incredible.
You know, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to realise that it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And I think in any business, first of all, today it's very, very difficult to actually have a plan, have a business plan. And until we understand, you know, what the repercussions are going to be coming out of the coronavirus. I mean, I know that I will not have an event. I've lost £2-3 million of the business. I will not have an event till this time next year, which will be next May. So I'm now working on a plan to keep my staff employed with no business once we come out of furlough. And you can't plan that without confidence and experience. And experience is one of the key things. So in Marks and Spencer's, in the two-year training scheme, they teach you to do every single job in the store, from the cleaners to the guys that unload the vans, that work, every single job except the manager's job. That's the job that you don't do. And I can, hand on heart, tell you that I can do every single job that I would ask any of my people to do. I would never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do myself, whatever it be. So I've unblocked toilets, I've cleaned loos, I've sent bar guys back because the champagne's not chilled. I've told people to rip up dance floors because I've changed my mind and I want one with lights in and not a black and white one. And they do it because they respect me. Not one of them will roll their eyes and say, oh, God, you know, what's wrong now? I'm not doing this. It's just taking me 3 days to do this and I'm not doing this again. They'll turn around and say, why? And I'll say, because if we do it this way, and I've made a mistake and I'm sorry, but, you know, the event's in 2 days' time and we've got time to change it. So what I'm trying to say is anybody that is setting up in business now, if there is any way that you can go out and get an experience in a competitive business or in any business, go and learn, go and communicate with people, go and work in a pub, go and work in a cafe. And when that person comes to the counter, you want that person to go out and say, God, she was fab. I'm going back in there again. Who was she? You don't want somebody to say, do you want a latte or do you want black and white? And that would be £3, please. And you go out just indifferent to who the person you communicated with. You want them to, and so Eamon Holmes is the best at this. He can go in any venue, and Eamon and I are great mates, and he can remember everybody's name. And I like scurry behind him because I'm in awe of this, because I can just about remember my own name, never mind anybody else's name. But I now do that. So I will go into the Dakota Hotel in Manchester, and Pino, who's the concierge there, I'll say, Pino, how you doing? And he'll go, oh, Miss Taylor, how are you? And I go, come on, Pino, it's Liz, you know. When somebody goes into that hotel and says that they want to, you know, well, I'm here to look at a venue, we're going to have a 50th birthday party, Pino will say to that person, I know just the person for you.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole thing works. So that's the best advice I can give. Go and get experience, do stuff, go and meet, you know, never underestimate anybody, because the most insignificant of people, and I don't mean that derogatory, but people that you might just walk past and actually think, well, actually, you know, I don't need to talk to you because I'm here to see the sales director. Well, you bloody well do.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll tell you a very funny story. I don't know whether I should be telling this.
Oh, no, you have
I
to tell us
went
now.
a few years ago to pitch for a job. And when I parked my car, there were 5 parking spaces outside this block of office. It was in Wilmslow. I parked the car in a space that I knew I could, but obviously they didn't know, whoever it was, the MD didn't know. I said that specific. And there was no lift. And it was at the time that all my portfolios were hard portfolios. I schlepped up 5 flights of stairs with these books, sweated, and did a presentation, which went okay. I wasn't quite sure. I get my books, I go all the way down, and some car has blocked me in. So I put my books in the car, and I go all the way up again. And there's a guy stood in the reception, and I go up to the receptionist, and I said, oh my God. I said, some arsehole's blocked me in. You know what's coming. I turned around to me and he said, I'm the arsehole and I'm the chairman of the company. Obviously I didn't get the job, but I sent him a huge bottle of champagne, and I just put a note in, because I knew I was not going to get the job. I just put a note in from one arsehole to another. But that just don't ever, I really learned from that. So yeah, it was a funny story.
I was going to say, this is the moment you knew you fucked up.
Big time I fucked up. But I've written a book called Tailor Made. It's coming out later in the year. Quite a few funny stories in that. I've had a great time. But yeah, have the confidence in yourself, believe in yourself. You don't need all the suits and the Prada handbags. You don't need all the, you just need what's up in your head, the confidence to do it, and just go out there and talk to everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone. The guy who waves the trains off at Wilmslow Station is my biggest fan. He listens to everything I do and watches everything, and he goes, hiya, what you want? And I love him. If they ever do This Is Your Life, I want you to go and find that fellow on Wilmslow Station.
Listen, Liz, thank you so much for taking your time today to share your journey and your incredible words of wisdom with us all on the Be Your Own podcast. What a fantastic way to kickstart the very first episode with us on the podcast. Thank you.
This is my lesson to you. When we first started this podcast, you had the video off. You weren't going to let me see you. And I actually believe that making you turn the video on creates a completely different relationship between you and I moving forward. We will meet in the Northern Quarter, Sam, and we will have some alcohol. I've loved it.
So there we have it, the first episode of the Be Your Own podcast, hosted by me, Samantha Duran, and brought to you by Be Your Own Collective. Thank you so much for listening. Please let us know what you think of the show. Don't forget you can find us on both Instagram and Twitter at Be Your Own UK. Our email address is beyourown@beyourown.org, so make use of it and drop us an email with anything that you want to know. If you fancy reading pretty much all of the career navigation stuff we talk about here on the podcast, then head over to beyourown.org for exclusive content, interviews, tools and resources. And lastly, if you love the show, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast, either on Stitcher, iTunes or Spotify. And that's it from me. I'm off to grab vegan pizza and make a coffee. So see you next time.